Where do you see the Russians in the next few months as the West has crossed the red line by supplying Ukraine with long range missiles and using them against Russia? Look, the Ukraine war has now seemingly entered a new phase. The West has the Biden regime, which is a lame duck regime because they've lost the election and Trump is going to be in power, in office at least, from January something onwards, 21 or something onwards, in a couple of months. So the Biden regime is a lame duck regime. Biden is a lame duck president. Uh, they are currently transitioning. They are doing the transition to the Trump regime. And in despite being a lame duck regime that has lost the elections, they are going ahead and pouring fuel on the fire in Ukraine. So they have given the go ahead to Ukraine for using long range American missiles. And the Russians say that the Ukrainians don't have the ability to use these missiles, which means that you will need American technicians on the ground who will operate the missiles and actually send them off, fire them. But yeah, such missile strikes have already started. There is a new phase in the new escalation in the war. I think the Russians will not take any drastic action, any very drastic measures until Trump comes to power, and then they will probably be expecting that Trump will negotiate with them and seek to find ways and solutions that will lead towards an end to this war or some kind of ceasefire. So I think the Russians will try and wait it out. And in the meanwhile, it looks like the Biden regime will try their best to instigate the Russians to escalate by escalating themselves. Um, so I think the next couple of months are going to be very dangerous because the Biden regime seems to be hell bent on instigating nuclear war. Uh, so I think the Russians, despite whatever is being said about Putin and Russia in the Western media, I think the Russians are super sane. They're very logical people. Putin is a very logical, rational, sane person. He understands what the Biden regime wants to instigate him into doing, and he will make sure that he doesn't allow them to succeed. Russia allegedly used an ICBM just a few days ago against Ukraine. So the Ukrainians, with American help and American approval, they targeted sites in Russia with American long range missiles. And Russia responded by launching at least one ballistic missile attack against Ukraine. Now, the media reported that this was an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, let's take a look at the map. Okay. Uh, Here's Ukraine and here's Russia. Now, intercontinental missiles have a range in excess of 8,000 kilometers. Now, let's say you are launching a missile from, let's say, some position like this here, Saratov Oblast, or wherever it was. What location was it? I don't remember right now. But you see, if you want to hypothetically target a place in the interior of Ukraine, then that's just about 500 or so kilometers from reasonably within Russian territory. So for targeting a location that's 500, 600, 700, let's say 1,000 kilometers away, you don't use an intercontinental ballistic missile. That's a waste of a missile. Those missiles are insanely expensive. You don't use an ICBM for that. You use a medium range missile. So Putin later went ahead and gave a statement that they had used a new medium range ballistic missile to target Ukraine. It's a new experimental developmental test of the missile. I forget the name of the missile, it's in Russian, but it's an intermediate or medium range ballistic missile. And apparently, it may have had MIRVs, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. So one missile with 5 packages or 10 packages in it. So a missile that carries multiple warheads and can target each warhead independently of the others, that sort of thing. Now, Ballistic missiles can be used to deliver regular payloads as well as nuclear payloads. In this case, it was obviously not nuclear payloads, it was just regular uh, low explosive payloads, because I saw the footage. It was not like big explosions. It was about sending a message, not to Ukraine but to the US. And apparently, there is a hotline between Russia and the US, and the Russians used it just a few minutes before the launch, just before the launch, and they informed the Americans in advance that we are going to do this, and this is a non-nuclear missile. It's not going to have nuclear warheads, but we're just informing you so that there is no unnecessary escalation or panic. So the Russians have taken this measure, which demonstrates that they have options in the escalation ladder. The They don't have only one option, which is tactical nuclear warheads. They have a multiplicity of options, and they have a new missile that they can use, new ballistic missile that they can use. So yeah, this is an escalation in the war. The Americans are trying their best to send us headlong into nuclear war, but the Russians, I think, they are holding firm, and hopefully, once Trump comes in power, things will change, and hopefully, the war ends in some kind of ceasefire. Hopefully.